Hey there, and welcome back to TingleCon 2022. I am Nathan ASMR, and I'm joined by a fabulous panel of ASMR artists, and we are joined by Tirar Adeguelo, Calming Escape, and Jellybean Green, all who are what I would consider to be legends in the ASMR community. And so today we're going to be talking about just that, legends and just the history, the evolution, just what we've seen over the years as ASMR has come so far and in such a short amount of time. So with that all said, why don't we dive into these questions here? And there's actually really the first part of this will be my questions, and then we'll be asking the audience who have submitted a bunch here some questions they might have for you as well. So, all right, so let's start with the first question here, and that is, tell us about your channel and what can viewers expect if they were to go check it out. Mike, do you want to start us off?
I do pretty weird stuff, and I don't know, I'm more of a character-driven channel, and I don't do a lot of tapping, and I do a lot of odd themes and a lot of, try to inspire people and make people feel good about themselves, and I try to insert a little bit of social stuff in there to help people out with different problems. And I also try to make people feel accepted on my channel, that there's people like me out there that accept you just as you are. It doesn't really matter what you are, who you are. We're all different, but we're all the same at the same time. We're all just human beings trying to get along. And that's kind of my main message now. I've had fun doing ASMR and tapping on jars and all that stuff, but it's time to start maybe putting something back in the system. And that's what they can expect from my channel. Something different every time too. I don't do the same video very often. So that's about it.
Awesome. What about you, Cassie?
I do a nice little mix of ASMR from over the years. I definitely think that I add some nerdiness into it because I'm a big geek. So, like Star Wars, DC, Marvel, you can totally find that on my channel because I love it. So I always try and figure out a way to mix it into ASMR any way I can. But I like to have fun with it too.
Great. And what about you, JB?
Hi. I do mostly role plays, and I specialize mostly in either medical or like woo-woo type role plays or sci-fi. Those are kind of my favorite areas to play around in. I do a lot of crossover with them. And my favorite kind of vibe to go for with my videos is creating these role plays that are just detailed enough for it to feel like a fully fleshed out world and story, but I like to leave it open-ended enough with the story so that the viewer can sort of be the co-writer of it and insert their own details. Are they this character, are they that character? They can kind of decide for themselves. So that's mostly what I do.
Awesome. So you can find all of those, all of them on YouTube, and we'll put the links there in the below as well, just so you know. And this is going to be kind of a big question for you, this panel specifically here. But number 2 here is, how did you get into ASMR and how did you start creating it? Mike, do you want to lead us off?
Okay. I always was experiencing ASMR from when I was a little kid, like my earliest memories. And it was really weird because back then you were told stop doing that. Don't do that. I used to do this thing with my fingers. I called it hot dog fingers, where you kind of make like a little miniature hot dog between your fingers. And I used to do things with pens, trace around my ears and around my eyes. And, I did that in school and stuff. I was bored in school because I was a pretty quick kid, so school was boring for me. So I would just sit there and play. And the whole time I'm just giving myself ASMR. Well, my mom actually took me, I think I've told this story before, that my mom actually took me to the eye doctor and because she thought there was something wrong with me. And here it was, I was just using my eyes and focus to create this ASMR effect that was tingling in my brain. So you could imagine my surprise around 2010, 2012, I started watching people like Cass, of all people. And this is a true story. She's one of the first people I watched and on YouTube. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm not weird. It's not weird. I'm just like all these people here. And that's basically how I got into it. I thought, well, I can do this because I'm actually pretty good at it. I've been doing it my whole life. So I think that answers it.
What about you, Cassie?
I remember I was like struggling with anxiety like crazy, and I was desperate to find what is now known as the unintentional videos, like the medical videos that are people practicing or the makeup videos. I would like search YouTube for these, and I didn't know why they relaxed me, but they sure did. And then eventually I kind of found the whisper community, which would grow into the ASMR community. And so like then I had a bunch of videos to watch and I didn't have to dig so much for it, for the relaxing feeling that I enjoyed so much. So I think that kind of dipped my toes into it.
Absolutely. And Lola, what about you?
I first noticed that I was having ASMR, like the feelings, when I was a child, and my older sister experiences it too. And it was something that we would connect over our whole life growing up, that we got this, specific response to, like, especially listening to certain guided meditations and things like that. And then at one point, shortly after I'd had my first child, my sister was visiting me and she was like, "Oh my gosh, that feeling we've always had, they make videos now on YouTube that are specifically for that." And it was mind-blowing. And she introduced me to a few people that she watched at the time, and that's how I got started. Um, and then did you ask how we started making it
Yeah,
as
yeah. How'd you
well?
start creating it?
Yeah. So I had been watching ASMR on a nightly basis for, I think it was like 2.5 years, like every night, to help me fall asleep. So I was a huge fan. And I was going through this period of a lot of transition and upheaval in my life. I was going through my first divorce. And I think, like a lot of people do when they're kind of going through a time of a lot of change in their life, I was asking myself a lot of questions about who I am and what I'm into, and sort of rediscovering myself. And at the time, starting an ASMR channel felt really brave and risky. I know it still can for new creators today to some extent, but back then, 8 years ago, it was much, much more rare. There were a lot of people who like weren't even showing their faces at that point because it was
Yes.
so extra weird and niche at the time. So it felt like this really weird, exciting, daring thing to do, which is really what I needed at the time. So that's why I dove in.
Wow, that's fascinating, actually. So on that same note, I think this next question kind of leads into this. What was so? I guess for each of you, this will just be your experience, maybe when you first kind of got into it. But when you did first find it, I mean, so maybe Mike, you want to talk on this? What was ASMR like? Maybe 10 years ago or so, when you first kind of found it? What was it like when you sort of landed on it?
Well, with me, and I kind of like what Cassie said, you would look for unintentional videos, like glass blowing was a big one for me.
Mhm.
But it had to be glass blowing with no music. It had to be glass blowing without the loud blast of the gas fire. Um, Shoe shining was a big one. I like those videos, the towel snapping and the guy doing it and all the motions with his hands. And then the whispering community started, like she said, with the people doing it with their arms. A lot of it
Mhm.
was girls doing this with their arms. They would
Yeah.
pet themselves. I remember that. And I listened to three artists in particular when I started. It was Calming Escapes, Whispers Unicorn, and of course Maria, Gentle Whispers. And then I never listened to any of the male artists, but I liked massage ASMR a little bit, but I just wasn't into watching men, which even back then there weren't a lot of male artists. So
Yeah.
did I miss the question, or that was it?
No, that was perfect. No, that was perfect. That was perfect. And Calming Escape, what about you? What was it like for you when you first got into it? Do you want to maybe talk more about the Whisper community a little bit? Because I think that was kind of
Yeah.
an origin story, I feel like, for ASMR in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. I remember that a lot of people would do whisper reading back then,
Mhm.
reading poetry or books, or I know that some people, while they were studying, they would just whisper whisper what they were studying. And that was just like a very, you know, lo-fi version of like what we see today. And we didn't really see their faces. You know, most of the time it was the camera was pointed at the page, or like Mike said, their arms or whatever. And it was just like very lo-fi, just the whisper. And it was very calming and relaxing when I first started to find it.
I don't want to interrupt, but remember
go ahead,
origami
please.
videos?
Yes, yes.
Origami was monstrous back then.
So big. Absolutely. Because then you kind of had like the whispers or like the soft spoken with the paper sounds.
Yeah.
Those were huge.
It's almost so old it feels like it could come back, I feel like.
Yes.
And Lola, what about you? What was your experience like with ASMR? Like in those beginning years, what kind of stuff were you watching or finding interesting?
So I think the first person I ever watched was Ilsa, the Water Whispers. And then there were a handful of people who I specifically remember being some of my earlier people: Whispers Unicorn, Maria, Visual Sounds One, Cassie, you were one of my first. And I just want to ask a side question real quick. Have you had the same intro all these years?
Um, it's always been
It's been a
related.
long time.
It's my favorite waterfall. It's
Okay.
always been like a variation of my favorite waterfall.
Okay. It's been consistent enough that I
Yes.
still I'll go to watch your videos, and it makes me so immediately comforted and nostalgic when I see
Oh,
that
good.
intro.
I love that. That's so cool.
But I remember when I started watching, it was a simpler time. Like there just, you know, there wasn't cinematic ASMR back then. It was all very lo-fi, low key. Um, at that point, you know, role plays were starting to just get big at that point. But even so, the role plays were very chill and, you know, simple production value. And
Mhm.
there's something that I honestly really miss about that. I love it because it had this feeling of going back to childhood and playing
Mhm.
pretend and kind of just making the best out of what you had and having to use your imagination. And obviously there's a ton of beautiful value to stuff that gets made today that's really cinematic and realistic. But those kind of simpler sort of, for lack of a better word, I know most people refer to them as lo-fi. Those videos have really my heart still after all these years.
And I'm unmuting myself. Awesome. Well, so I think that that kind of leads me into this next question. I'm gonna kind of just ask you to take a position here. I know, obviously, like, you know, it's not really exactly. There's probably great stuff from then and now, but similar to music, you know, like for myself, I love music from the '60s and '70s and stuff like that, rock music, classic rock. But do you think ASMR has gotten better or worse in your opinion? Which one do you prefer personally? Mike, do you want to?
Um, I don't think it's better or worse than it was then than it is now. I'm finding new artists now. They're not new either. They're just okay. I don't. Maybe I never watched that person. So now in 2022, I'm watching them. Like right now, I'm on this Taylor ASMR, I think her name is. I never watched her ever. Now I'm watching her videos because she's new to me. And like I used to watch Cassie, then I quit watching Cassie for a couple of years. I used to watch Visual Sounds One all the time, then I quit watching her for a while. Then I go back to Cassie, then I go back to Visual Sounds One. And the same thing with like Jelly Bean Green. You know, I kind of have this thing in my brain where I cycle channels in and out. And it's always like I'll go back and watch the classics that Maria and Whispers Unicorn did, and I get this charge through my brain. Whispers Unicorn used to do some very specific little triggers that were very minutia, very small moments in time that were incredible. And I still go back and I'll watch them and still get ASMR from them. But I think you have to lay it down. I have a very specific opinion on this. I think you have to quit and like not watch that artist anymore, watch a new artist. And then you can come back and it's like new again, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I know that sounds, yeah, it works. I think that pretty much explains it. But like there's videos I watch Jelly Bean Greens like over and over and over and over again. Then I quit watching them then time goes by, then I go back to them, and I think there's something about that. I don't think it's better or worse now than it ever was. There's more competition now, and I don't like that part of it. And there's a social media part I don't like, but that's my opinion.
Understood. Calming Escape, what about you?
Yeah, I don't know if it's better or worse. It is definitely more accepted these days because back in the day, it was a weird part of YouTube. And nowadays, like I'll get ASMR ads before a YouTube video, which trips me out. Like I'm not used to it because I think my mindset is still the girl where I showed half my face because it was the weird part of YouTube. But definitely more options to like, look at newer artists or older artists, and definitely more accepted with a little bit more positivity and not just like the weird side of YouTube.
Absolutely. And JBG, what about you?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of like of both minds in the sense that there's a lot that I miss about how the way things were. And I think that the way things were years back, there was value to certain things that we've lost. At the same time, I think we've gained certain things. Um, as far as it being more accepted, it's just a lot more accessible now. We talk about it
Hmm.
being accepted to the point of being relatively commercialized. I remember a while back, I was scrolling through Instagram and I got like a Jack in the Box ASMR ad. It had like little tiny tacos raining from the sky quietly or something like that. It was amazing. It was very silly. Um, I, you know, I think a lot of people, or I have viewers who say they do something similar to what I do, which, I go to bed at night and I'll scroll through my subscription feed. And sometimes I'll find a new video that I'm excited about, and sometimes I won't. And then I'll go back to one of my favorites. And I have a ton of videos that were made 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago that are still my favorites, that still have high rewatch value for me. Um, so I definitely think that there are some things that make me a little sad or a little wistful sometimes with how slick and sort of trendy and commercialized ASMR can be now. But at the same time, I have a lot of appreciation for how much more accessible it is, how much more relatively acceptable it is to watch ASMR, because back then there was this big concern about, would people who would benefit from ASMR not watch it because there's so much of a stigma that they just felt too embarrassed to watch it. And I think there's a lot less of that now.
Hmm.
So I feel really glad that there are so many more people who can comfortably enjoy the benefits of ASMR without stigma or shame. So there's a lot that I miss, but I also appreciate what it being so much more popular has brought to the people who watch it.
Absolutely. And in a way, ASMR is just a microcosm of the greater commercialization of any art product like music and paintings and all those things. Inevitably, when money gets involved, it gets a little bit, you lose some of the art and you get some of the commercialization. So like you get the Jack in the Box video. Okay, so let's just dive into these audience questions because we have kind of a lot. And we have just about 30 minutes, I would say. So that's just perfect. I'm halfway through. And so I'm going to just start right here with this one. And this is from Amy K ASMR. Over the years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of trends in ASMR. Do you have a favorite ASMR trend and a least favorite? Mike, you want to start us off?
See, the one trend I don't like is you go through your subscription feed and everybody's doing the exact same video at the exact same time. So we all know we're playing the algorithm game, and that kind of gets on my nerves. Doesn't seem like there's as much variety and experimentation as there used to be. I do think that's a problem. Let's see, a trend that we used to do that we don't do anymore. I should have thought about this more. You know what? Collabs used to be fun. I hate doing collabs now. That's a trend I won't do anymore. When's the last time you saw a good collab? 2016?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. A couple
you
years,
know.
2018, maybe. The gentleman collab. I like that one.
Yeah. No. Collabs are okay. I don't want to trash them, but it's just, I don't know. Maybe I lost interest in them. But I had some great ones I did in the past, and I don't know. That's about it.
Cool. All right. And Common Escape, what about you? What do you
Let's
feel like is a
see.
favorite trend or a least favorite trend you've seen over the years?
I absolutely adore the trend of videos, and I don't think there's enough of them where it's like you make the fake body with pillows and like you use it as the viewer. I find them to be so relaxing, and I kind of hunt for them too. I think there needs to be like a million more of those videos.
I'll make you one, Cass.
Yes, they're so good. One that I don't like, and oddly enough, it kind of varies between social media. I find them a lot on TikTok, is like the really aggressive ASMR. It kind of stresses me out. So I kind of steer away from those ones that are like really like up in your face to the camera and like very loud in some instances. They're just not for me.
Understood. And what about you, Lola? What do you think? What's a favorite ASMR trend and a least favorite one?
So, I mean, in general, I am really grateful for the like gradual evolution of role plays becoming more and more of a staple, because they were definitely like a little more odd, I know, earlier on. So I'm really glad that they've just become such a, maybe there's more role play ASMR than not now. I don't know. It's super common. Um, so I'm grateful that that got big. I'm grateful for the trend. I don't know if it's a trend necessarily, but I know like I prefer to do soft-spoken ASMR, and I prefer to listen to soft-spoken ASMR. I'm not a big whisper person. And years ago, there would be a lot of people who would get very strict and finger wagging and say, it's not ASMR if you're not whispering, or it's not ASMR if it's this or that. And people generally seem to be more open-minded about what ASMR can be now, which I appreciate. There are a good handful of ASMR trends that make me cringe and that I'm not into, and not to throw my other panelists under the bus, but I'm just not going to say what they are because it's like such a personal thing. I don't want to be like, oh, that thing when people do this, it's just ew, 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 like I don't, because there are a lot of people who love that, and I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. And yeah, I can appreciate that even though it makes me cringe, obviously there are other people who are eating it up and they're benefiting from it. So
Of course, absolutely. And we were going to have a mukbang panel on this year's TingleCon to speak of such controversial issues. Didn't happen, but next year I swear it will. If I have anything to do with it. But I feel like that's one of those communities that is like always gets the hard time. Okay, so I got another question here. So this I think is actually just really specifically directed at Common Escape. So this is from Minx Laura. I love you. You were one of the people who inspired me to start making ASMR videos. How do you feel knowing you inspired people to start being ASMR creators? We can ask everyone this question, I think, but let's just start with Common Escape because I think that's, since it was directed at you there.
Well, Laura is an absolute sweetheart. I love her so much. It's a trip to me because like I never thought that my channel would like be seen by anybody. I filmed my first video like hiding like in a closet because it was quiet, and I just thought I would jump into it. So the idea that my channel can inspire other people, it just doesn't even seem real to me even after doing this for 10 years. It's weird. I love it. It makes my heart like warm, but it doesn't seem real.
That's awesome. What about you, JBG? How do you feel when you know that you've inspired maybe some other creator to get out there?
Amazing. I love it.
Share the tingles.
I've had one good example is I remember one of my viewers had recommended I'm gonna feel so bad if I get her name wrong. I'm pretty sure it's Eliza ASMR. Um, so I went and I checked out her videos and I loved them. And there was this one type of video that she did that I was like, I'm gonna scoop this right up and try it myself. So I did a video in a similar style and I credited her. And then I forget if she left a comment or sent me a message, but she was like, oh my gosh, you are one of the people who inspired me to make videos. So that was a really incredible moment of this almost like feedback loop where I realized that someone who I felt inspired by had sometime further back been inspired by me. And that was amazing. And so I can backtrack a little bit and say that this isn't necessarily a trend, but one thing I'll see sometimes is that some people will get very protective about ASMR concepts or triggers that they feel like they originated. Um, and
Yeah, it's an
I
understatement.
just, yeah, some people get very intense about it. And I just don't get it. Like, I know that when I find, like, of course, it's nice to get credit if someone's been inspired by you, but that's like been a dream of mine that I would do something that would be like the next cranial nerve exam or the next like first thing that gets big. I love that idea. And I think a big part of that for me is the fact that I have limited reach because I'm, a parent, I have 3 kids. There are all these reasons that I can't make as many videos as I would like to. Um, so the idea that I can somehow further my reach by maybe inspiring other people who will make more videos, who can, the more content out there. Obviously, from a financial perspective, uh, competition can be frustrating sometimes, but just from a loving ASMR and caring about our viewers' perspective, finding ways to contribute to more content being out there, even if it's not content that I made, that feels really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we all wished we had created the person in the back of the class trend that is now currently raging like a wildfire through the ASMR community. But that all said, and now, Mike, did you want to talk a little bit about? I'm sure that you also have had some people tell you maybe you've inspired them. I feel like you've inspired a genre almost as well, you know?
Well, I don't. I was gonna say the girl in the back of the classroom. I was the guy in the back of the classroom, and I can't do one of those videos because they wouldn't monetize it because I was an ornery cuss in school. So I just thought that would be a fun thing to add to the conversation. I was a rotten little turkey at school. I guess I've inspired a few people, but I would like to take this chance to say that I don't respect too many people. Like I respect people, but I respect people who are real. You can tell you're talking to the real person when the camera's on and off. And I want to say that I've known Jelly Bean Green and Cassie Calming Escapes for ages, and they are two of the most genuine people I've met in ASMR in this entire field. And I couldn't believe I was asked to be on a panel with them. And they inspire me more than I feel I've inspired others, because I love meeting these people and finding out that they're real. They're not, when the camera goes off, they're not fake, if you know what I mean. And I just want both of you to know that whatever Minx Laura said about you, Cassie, I'd say the same thing. You're a wonderful person. And you've always been genuine from the first day I've ever talked to you. Same with you, Jelly Bean Green. You've been an awesome person since the first day I met you.
Thank you, Mike.
And you've been honest about yourself too. Like, you know how people, when the camera's off, they're a different person. I hope you know that this is it. There's nothing back here. This is all you get with me. And that's what I kind of like about these two wonderful ladies that I'm on a panel with.
Yeah, and you too, you too, Mike, because you've been so kind to me over the years, and as the community grew and everything, you've just been so kind to me. So right back at you.
Yeah, and I can hop on there and just sort of say that, like, I have such an appreciation for the feeling that, because I mean, for so many of us, this is our job. Like, this is ASMR YouTube is my only source of income. I think both of you have other jobs as well, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah. So like, not to knock people who are like, this is my job, I'm professional, I'm in and out. But there are, you know, a few people in the ASMR community who I can communicate with through messages or comments or whatever. And I know that I'm talking to the person. I'm not
Mhm.
just talking to their ASMR persona. And it's okay if people want to come in with just their persona and they're not comfortable sharing like who they are underneath that. Like, there are reasons for that, and I respect that. But I really treasure the people like Mike and like Cass and like there are, you know, a few other people who I could probably list off on maybe one hand. I don't know who I know when I'm talking to them. It's like talking to an old classmate or something like that. You know, I know I'm talking to the person and I really cherish that.
Mhm.
That is more rare than you might think. And I, you know, friendships come and go. We've been doing this a long time, so that's normal, especially on the internet, for people to come and go and everything. But the fact that I'm still talking to, you know, both of you in 2022 is very odd to me. It's very refreshing to have some genuine people out there. So
Absolutely. And in YouTube, it's especially rare to see kind of a nice history like this. This is really, it's so heartwarming here. I'm feeling good. This is good karma right now here. All right, so let's move on to the next question here, because we do have limited time, and there's a lot of other questions that a lot of people who love you guys. So you got the most questions of any panel. Okay, so here we go. Number 3 is from Whisperwind ASMR. And Whisperwind's asking, what is the hardest lesson you've learned about being a creator over the years? What advice would you give your past self when you were just starting out? Mike, do you want to lead us off there?
well, I'll be honest. When I first started doing ASMR, I was doing it for a quick buck. I have 8-10 different channels over the years in YouTube, and it was about making extra money. And I'm not gonna lie, but when I got into ASMR, it was almost immediate. I started to realize you are affecting these people's lives. These people care about you. These people are invested in what you're doing. You can't treat this like it's a business. You are actually involved in their lives to a degree. And it really changed me as a person. I hope I'm being as honest and transparent as I can be. I care about my audience and I worry about my audience, and I've helped a lot of people, and I took it serious. I don't want to compare myself to somebody like Mr. Rogers or somebody like that, but we have to be responsible with what we're doing, because ASMR is not just videos for entertainment. You're helping people through some pretty stressful and anxiety filled days, and you have to take that seriously. And I think it really changed me as a person and a creator. So,
and I highly recommend people checking out Mike's series. He's got a lot of different ASMR videos that talk about some of these different feelings and just aspects of the community, like you're mentioning. I think that
yeah,
I think it's like paint. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say, and by the way, we're not allowed, and all 3 of us will agree, we're not allowed to talk about the things that we could really talk about that would really help people, because they'll demonetize us and take our channel down. So we can't help our audience. We have to be discreet, and we have to be very careful how we do it, because they don't want us talking about any of the things that we could do that would actually help people. And I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. I don't want to cause any trouble by even mentioning those subjects.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually maybe a little interesting behind the scenes perspective for viewers who've never published a YouTube video, is that when, you know, we're uploading a video, it's not just an upload. There's like a whole series of screens and boxes we have to fill out and things we have to check off. And there's one whole page that's dedicated to determining whether or not your video will be eligible for revenue. And there are like this whole list, like categories and lists of things that you have to check off if your video includes like this whole variety of, you know, sensitive subjects. So yeah, that's definitely become more of a thing over the years, that some of the things we might want to talk about, we have to come up against the fact that if I talk about this, you know, darker or more sensitive topic, it's possibly going to result in this video not being eligible to make money. So yeah, that's
or even talking about somebody talking about it can even be, it's very strict with YouTube. That's absolutely true. and that's unfortunate
Wow.
there. Call Me Escape, did you want to talk about maybe a lesson that you feel just as being a creator for so long?
Um, I feel like over the years, I've definitely had an inner battle with YouTube's algorithm or views here or what you're supposed to be posting. And I think something that has made me last so long is like I tried to tell myself to be very dedicated to the content that I wanted to make. And in the long run, my viewers and my subscribers have stayed around so long because of that, I feel. And I always say I have like one of the best subscriber bases because they're just so kind to me. And I think maybe ignoring some of the how to post on YouTube and just like being creative or doing where your heart is at has been a good lesson for me. And I'm glad that like I kind of made myself do that over the years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Seems like authenticity is a key concept in this conversation.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And Lola, I know you had mentioned that other thing. Did you get a chance to talk about a lesson that you
Yeah, I
would give
think
to
the
yourself,
hardest,
younger self, or just the hardest lesson you
yeah,
learned?
the hardest lesson I've learned is something I'm still learning and having to relearn all the time, which is just learning to accept and be realistic about my own limits as a creator. So I do maybe wish I could kind of go back a little bit and give my, you know, baby ASMR self a little pep talk and be like, listen, you're never going to be one of the top creators. Like, that's just not for you. You have children, you have mental health issues, you have this, you have that. It's just not realistic that you will ever be able to perform at the level that they do. I just can't keep up. A lot of these creators, they post their schedules on Twitter or something, and they have something scheduled for every day of the week. They have 3 YouTube videos coming out a week. They're streaming on Twitch a couple days a week. It's a lot. And, you really, really, really have to hustle if you want to be one of those top performers. And every time I've tried to do that, I've just crashed and burned and had like really bad consequences from it. And then I wind up having to take these extended breaks. So, yeah, I think that's just kind of been the lesson, this kind of two-part of being realistic and honest and okay about the fact that I'm never going to be an ASMR star. I think of cult movie actors, like B-movie actors who I really love a lot, and, like, I think of myself more as, like, the cult B-movie actor of the ASMR world, like one of those where I have a smaller group of people, but they're really dedicated and they have great relationship. We have a great relationship with each other, and that's wonderful. Um, and kind of like Cassie said, it's been so important for me to really stick with making the kind of content that brings me joy to make and that I would want to watch too. Anytime I've started to stray away to try and make stuff that I think is going to get more views, but isn't necessarily content that I'm excited to make, I can't do it. It's not for me. I think the reason I've been able to stay around for so long and the reason I've been able to come back after some really difficult breaks away from it is because I've been so dedicated to my initial goals when I started my channel, and I've been so dedicated to making the type of content that I feel passionate about making.
Awesome. That's a great
Mhm.
answer there. Okay, so we actually have we're running out of time here. We have about a little bit, basically 15 minutes here. But we can go a little bit over, but we do have just a couple more questions here, 4 more. So I just want to make sure we get through all of them here. And now this is a question from Whisperwind again, Whisperwind ASMR, also known as Knob the Goblin. Go check out that channel. You've seen a lot of trends come and go. Any predictions for the future of ASMR content? Mike, do you want to lead us off here?
I think you're going to see more division that you're seeing kind of now. You're going to have your Reiki audience, you're going to have your mukbang audience, you're going to have your whisper audience, and you're going to have your soft-spoken role play audience. And I think the YouTube algorithm, but also the YouTube audience is actually doing that. They're pushing us apart. Reiki is almost its own thing now. And then you have like different types of styles within that are also niches, and you're going to see more division, especially with I'm not a fan of mukbang, by the way. I don't know if anybody noticed. But I do think that's going to be a trend that they're going to be pushing us further and further apart. The genres, I mean, the subgenres of ASMR. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. Cassie, what about you?
I feel like I'm still like hopeful that ASMR real life spas will open or something, but I think that's wishful thinking.
I think there's one in New York. I think there is.
There's
one. I
something.
think there's
Yeah,
one. I
it'll be
heard, or
like little things that
was-
pop up and then fade away
pop
after a
up.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It hasn't.
It hasn't really stuck, but I always like dream about that because it's like I'm always doing the behind this camera stuff, and I was like, maybe I want to go have an ASMR session somewhere. But I definitely agree with what Mike said, that there's definitely different like sections of this big umbrella of ASMR, and I think they're just gonna like grow into like different puzzle pieces that are for like different sets of people, I guess.
Different lunch tables.
Exactly.
Jelly Bean Green, what about you? Do
I
you
can
feel like
tell you that when I was a teenager and I first saw an ad, was it for T-Mobile, for when cell phones with cameras on them first came out. I'm old enough that I remember that. I remember seeing an ad for it and being like, who would even use that? That's a stupid idea. That's going to die out. Which is to say that I am uniquely terrible at predicting trends, so I'm not even going to try.
All righty. So that I'm also bad at predicting trends. So yeah, if only about Bitcoin. Darn it. Okay, so here's the next one. This is kind of more lighthearted here. This actually, I feel like especially Mike is gonna have a good answer to this, but Johanna asks, what is the weirdest, funniest video request that you've gotten that is allowed to be on the stream? That we are allowed to talk about on the stream. Mike, do you want to?
Okay, I'll keep it. I actually thought about this. Good thing I read the questions beforehand. You look just like the doctor from Human Centipede Part 2. And I said, well, we'll find out. And I did the video. The character Dr. Wobbles became Dr. Wobblesworth. It was named by Blue Whispers named him that. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, I look like the guy from Human Centipede 2. Yay! That makes me feel better about myself as a human being. The other one is
watch some guy come up to you in the street. Don't you? You look like that guy from Human Centipede 2. I saw you in that.
One of my favorites is you look just like the Penguin from DC Comics, and I usually reply because I do look like the Penguin from DC Comics. So
have you done a Penguin role play from DC Comics? I feel like that.
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it a few times.
Oh, I have to check that out. Check that out.
Yes.
Awesome.
So that's the weirdest thing I ever did was the Human Centipede doctor. So
I would say that counts as pretty weird. What about you, Comic Escape?
I did see Comic Escape laugh though. She probably has a favorite. So.
Yeah. After so many years, Comic Escape. What do we got? What's the funniest video request that's not, that's
I know,
appropriate
right?
for
like
TingleCon.
I feel like the weird one.
Yeah, like some of the really weird ones, we don't want those ever repeated. Yeah,
we don't want those.
Oh.
Oh, all of the ones that come to mind don't belong on YouTube. They belong on a different site, which to each their own.
Yes.
How about fingernails? Do you get those ones?
Oh, yeah, that's a throwback because back in the day, there was a group of people that would demand the black fingernail polish. And there was they came back like a couple years ago. So I feel like I remember you when I started and now you're back.
Oh, wow. Full circle.
Yes.
Jeez. All right, black nail polish. What about you, Jelly Bean Green? What's one of the weirdest, funniest video requests you've gotten?
Anytime I've gotten the question about weird requests, I feel obligated that we all acknowledge that for a lot of the human population, any ASMR request is a weird request, right?
Accurate.
So that's one of the things I try, because I've definitely gotten requests over the years from people where I was like, I don't know about that one, or that seems pretty out there. But at the same time, I mean, look at the videos we're making, so we're making some very, very out there stuff. I think, like, Mike especially makes stuff that's not just weird, but like even weird by ASMR standards.
Yeah.
I mean that in the most complimentary way
No,
possible.
that's true.
In a good, in a
But
good
so
way. In a good way.
so yeah, so I'm very hesitant to label any request as weird, just with that in mind, because it feels a little hypocritical almost.
Because in reality, we are still part of the weird part of YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes. That's what I like to hear. Yes. All right. So we got 2 more questions here. Let's leap into these here. And this one is from FamCam, who is a member of TingleCon. Shout out to FamCam. What is something you really loved about the early days of ASMR that you believe is underappreciated today? Let's actually,
Lo-fi.
I'm gonna start with Jelly Bean Green. Why don't you start us off, since we've been going? Yeah. Well, let's
Okay.
mix it up.
Well, I think it's what Mike was just, I think, about to say, and lo-fi. And there's almost this paradoxical effect for me as a viewer. I know not all viewers are the same, where the more slick and cinematic and realistic a video is, the less immersive it actually feels for me in a lot of cases, because I feel like I'm watching a movie. So I feel more like an audience member when I see those types of videos. Whereas when I see stuff that's more on the lo-fi side, I feel more engaged. And I think it's because it triggers that part of my brain, like I was talking about earlier when I was a kid and I'd play pretend. For that reason, I think those more lo-fi videos actually feel more real and more immersive for me. So that's something I miss a lot.
Cass, what about you? What's
Yeah, kind of similar to that. And I go through phases where like I'll really love like a crisp microphone or whatnot, but like the cell phone videos like that were so popular back in the day because that's what people were using to film on. I still see some people using them today and they're so great. It doesn't have to be like super fancy to, like JB said, to kind of like trigger that thing in your brain. Just like the simple, your phone sitting on your desk and you're making an ASMR video.
awesome? What about you, Mike? What's
Well, yeah, like back to the lo-fi thing, a little bit of white noise in the background. This real steady white noise. It's like when you're a kid and you're trying to sleep in the back seat of the car. It's not quiet, it's loud, it's noisy, and everything, but you're being lulled to sleep by that steady rhythm of the road. And I think we're missing a little bit of that. And then I mentioned her earlier. This girl, Taylor ASMR. She does a lot of videos. She records when it's raining outside. So there's this pitter patter of rain on her ceiling, on her rooftop. And she's doing her video and there's this ebb and flow of the wind and the rain picking up and everything. Oh my God. It's like those were the days when we used to have
Will
videos.
you send me a link to one of those? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, all of a sudden I'm like, wait, who is
she?
I know what I'm watching tonight. Yeah. Every once in a while.
Videos on loop. I put them on loop, which I don't know if you know the feature loop, and I'm out cold for 2 hours. So, and she's somebody I newly discovered like in the last couple months. That's why I mentioned it, because she's not new. I didn't even know who she was until 2 months ago. So this is the fun part of the exploration of ASMR. Here I am talking about somebody that's doing something I used to like 10 years ago, and she's doing it now. So that's fun. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so we got two questions here. So let's I want to just, the last question, I kind of just want to give you a chance to, plug your channel and maybe let people know something they can look up. But this comes from Jade, and it's over the years, what is the weirdest trend you've seen? Mike, you want to, or actually, Cass, do you want to start us off?
Go with Cass, yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, trying to mix,
I don't really, well, like, kind of like JB said, it's hard to say what's weird because we're all weird. I don't don't really know the weirdest trend. I guess for like just me, my own personal like things that I watch is the louder startling triggers, which may work for some people, but just stresses me out a little bit because that's just my preference. So I guess in my mind that's weird, but somebody else might love like a louder ASMR trigger, I guess.
Absolutely. And what about you, JVG?
Yeah, so I want to be careful to like not say that I'm criticizing this. It's just, not my thing. But I don't know who started it, but there's this almost cadence or way of speaking that I started to see popping up a while back. And it's this just a ton of repeating words, someone who's like, hello, 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 hello.
Oh.
Today we're going to take a can. And like it happens to just not be my thing, which is fine.
Mhm.
But the fact that I started seeing it like spread, like obviously it's popular, and I guess that's why people are doing it because they see it doing well or they enjoy it. But it was just that was not quite weird, but sort of a surreal thing to see that like invading more and more creators and more videos. It was really interesting. It's like a whole style of speech that I saw people starting to pick up over time.
Mhm.
Awesome. And what about you, Mike?
I'll just stick with a simple one. I never understood mukbang videos, and most mouth sound videos set me off, which is funny because I like my own mouth sound videos. They're the only ones I watch, but I can't stand mouth sounds videos unless they're perfect. There are people who do perfect mouth sound videos, but only to me. They're only perfect to me in my own little world.
Yeah, mukbang is the hot controversy. I feel like eternally in ASMR. That's the big one right there. Next year, we're getting that panel. Let me give you. So we have time for this one last question because I think it's a good one, and we'll kind of just lighten it up. Give you a chance to talk about your channel for just a second. So as we fade away, people will know to go check them out. Yeah, that's right. Go check out and subscribe and like these awesome ASMR artists. But what is your favorite ASMR video you've done of all time and your least favorite? Just that can come to mind. Mike, do you want to lead us off here?
I did a video about Genghis Khan being a child, and I went back in time and saved him. And it was called Temujin ASMR, which is a big search engine on YouTube. Temujin, you're going to make a ton of money with that name. And I always loved that video. And over the years, people have told me how much they liked it. And that one, and I did one called The Ninth Configuration about one of my favorite movies. And they're not big money makers. They were just the ones that I like, that I told a story or I did something in it that really made me happy. And I really have good memories of that.
What about you, Cass? What's some your favorite video?
One of my favorite always comes to mind is probably because I work so hard on it is I named it Dreaming Burton, and it was basically where I played a bunch of different Tim Burton characters doing ASMR. And it was so much work, but I loved it, how it came out so much. It will just always be one of my favorites. One of my least favorites, oddly enough, is super popular to my viewers. It is a flower shop video, which was the first role play I ever filmed where you could see my full face. And I hate it because I'm not used to my eyes being shown and I'm looking at the viewfinder like the whole time and it irritates me, but my viewers love it.
Awesome. And what about you, Jelly Bean Green? Your least
So,
favorite and most favorite.
yeah, I'm gonna do it in that order, I think. I don't know if I have one specific. There's one that I can think of that I enlisted a bunch of videos recently. But and there were a few like this, one in particular that I'm thinking of. It was very early on. I did like a blind bag unboxing thing where I think it was like Game of Thrones figurines or something where I was just like, oh, I'm gonna open this and we'll see what's inside. And it was something where I had been seeing a lot of like blind bag or unboxing. I had seen those types of videos doing well. I didn't really have any interest in them. They didn't do that much for me, but it was something I tried to do because I saw other people doing it and I wanted to give it a whirl. And it didn't do particularly well, and it was, like, fine to make, but it was, just a very early example for me of, like, don't do something unless you're excited to make it. And then me probably my favorite video to make, I don't know what just my favorite of my videos is, but one of my favorite videos to make was I did this alien,
Mhm.
matchmaking service video where it was like a dating service type of thing, except instead of matching you to a romantic partner, we're matching you to some alien civilization who's looking to abduct people. So
Awesome.
it's people who wanna be abducted, matching them with, like, the right alien civilization for them. And it just had all these components. I got to do this fake intro, which I really enjoyed doing. I think there's an art form to it. Tingle Smith, who I know is involved in the con,
We love
he
Tingle Smith.
he has a few videos with those, like, fake intros that I absolutely love. So, like, that was a joy to make, and then I had, like, these fake customer testimonies, and I asked a few other content creators. Tingle Smith was one of them, ASMR Shanny, Whisper Wind, and Bearded Audio. All like, I sent them little snippets of dialogue to record as if they were past clients who, like, had been really happy with the service. And, they agreed, and they did an awesome job. And there's for those of you who've done it, there's a really special joy to writing dialogue and seeing other people perform it with their own twist on it and doing it really well. That feels really good. Um, so it was just something where there were all these different creative elements to it that were just a lot of fun to work on and bringing it all together. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, I think that that will be the close here. That was really amazing. I mean, I certainly enjoyed it. I loved hearing the stories. A lot of the most love, a lot of love shared on this panel, the most of any. And I think it was really interesting. I think a lot of people who came in ASMR, especially recently, are going to be pretty blown away hearing about some of those experiences and how it's changed over the years. So, with that all said, I want to thank all of our panelists here today, which is Tirar Adeguelo, Commune Escape, and Jelly Bean Green ASMR. Thank you all three so much for joining us. We truly appreciate it. And with that all said, we will see you in the next panel.